قلوبهم
ختم الله على قلوبهم
وعلى سمعهم
وعلى سمعهم
وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة
وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة
ولهم عذاب عظيم
ولهم عذاب عظيم
ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم
ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم
وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة
وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة
ولهم عذاب عظيم
ولهم عذاب عظيم
إن الذين read the whole thing.
إن الذين كفروا
Keep on going.
إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم
Again.
إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم
جميل. إن الذين indeed الذين those who كفروا they have disbelieved سواء it is all the same عليهم upon them أأنذرتهم whether you warned them or لم not or لم تنذرهم you did not warn them لا not يؤمنون they will believe ختم الله Allah has set a seal على upon قلوبهم their hearts وعلى and upon سمعهم their hearing وعلى and upon أبصارهم their sight غشاوة is a covering ولهم and for them عذاب will be a punishment عظيم great. Now let's look at some of the words and try to analyze them inshallah. So inna indeed, is this something new? It is. We have not read inna so far. This word inna is going to come in various different forms. Inna, anna, all the forms. As we come, we'll address them. The purpose of the word inna is to emphasize. Every time inna comes, right, it is to emphasize. And it is going to be used a lot in the Quran. Okay, so its main purpose is to emphasize, and it means indeed. Or in Urdu, beshak. Alladhina, have you read this before? Yes, where? Sirat alladhina an'amta alayhim, right? Sirat alladhina, we read that. Alladhina, same word. So nothing new. Kafaru. Kafaru is a new word. Kafaru, kafara. Root word, kafara. The Arabs in the past, they used to say kafara al-layl. The night has covered, i.e., the darkness of the night has covered what was visible. Okay, so kafarul layl is generally the word kafir. Kafara was used to cover the night. Now, a farmer, what do we call a farmer? Kafir. A farmer is a kafir. Why is he called a kafir? He covers. He takes the seed and puts it under the ground and covers the seed. That act of covering is called kufr. The act of covering of the night is called kafar al-layl, right? And from there comes many words in, for example, European languages when they had interactions with the Arabs, right? Coverte, 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 which means a cover. In English, the word cover, kafar, comes from exactly the same thing. Cover. The word cover comes from kafar. The covert. Then the other part, the beauty salons in French, what are they called? Right? What are they called? Coverte, i.e., areas where women go and cover stuff up. Right? So even those salons, i.e., makeup, you put something on, but in the French word, that is used for that. So the word cover, kafara, many of the words you're going to see are actually, you'll see that they have direct roots to the English language or the meaning. Now, kafaru over here is, now this was the lughawi meaning. Contextually, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about is indeed those people that chose not to use their aql. Allah has given them an aql and they closed their aql. They said, it's okay. I'm not going to use aql. I'm not going to use kafar. They put a cover on their aql, close by locking his aql and saying, I'm going to use it. So we're getting to that. This is just the lughawi of that, right? Then sawa'un, sawa, yeah. Wow. Kafaru. Yeah, something's hit. Yeah, so yeah, we're gonna get all of that. Like we're not gonna go into that. Yeah, something is. Okay. So they have disbelieved, i.e., kafaru. Now, sawa'un, this is something what? Sawa'un, something new. Sawa means equal. Sawa'un, equal. In Urdu, we say musawat, right? Right? Huh? Yeah, barabar. Something that is equal. Sawa'un alayhim, it is equal upon them. A'andartahum, whether you warn them. A'andartahum, what's the root word of andar? Andara? Nadir or nadara. Na, noon, za, ra. Noon, za, ra. The root word of noon, za, ra is when we give a warning and that warning is coupled with mahabba, it is coupled with love, it is coupled with care. Okay? If it is not coupled with care, what is it called? Takhweef. Right? My intention is not to get a positive or a musbat action out of you. My intention is to incite fear into you. Takhweef. But when I warn you, but the intention is not to make you afraid and tremble of the warning. The intention is you wake up and you say, I want to do something good. Let's move to the right direction. Okay? And that is called indar. And this was the beauty of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? That his warnings were filled with love and care. أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ, O Prophet of Allah? أَمْ لَمْ, or not? تُنذِرْهُمْ, you warn them. لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, they're not going to believe. And we're going to get into all of the aqadi issues that are coming here. We'll attack all of that. Khatam Allah, khatam. What's the root word? Very obvious. There's only three. So if there is three, those are the root words generally, unless something is hidden. Khatamin. Okay. Khitamuhu misk. Right? Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Muhammadun aba ahad min rijalikum wa khataman nabiyyin. And in another narration, wa khatimin nabiyyin. He is the khatim, the seal, and the khatim, he is the last one of the Nabi, right? So khatam is to seal something, right? To seal something. And where do we usually put a stamp? In the beginning or the end? It's always at the end. When the thing is sealed, you put a seal on it, right? And now, obviously, nowadays it's all digital signatures, no more. But even in the digital signature, it's in the end. But you have initials, 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 but then you sign in the end that I've read the entire document. I've read the page and I've read the entire document. So over here, it's a seal that prevents anything else from entering in it. Khatam Allah, that Allah has sealed, ala qulubihim, upon their hearts. The word qulub comes from the root word of qalb. Qaf, la, lam, ba. Qalbu shay is to flip-flop, right? To flip-flop. To flip on one side and then to flip at the other side, right? To flip-flop something. Wa'ala, and upon sam'ihim, their hearing. The root word of sam' is what? Sin, mim, ayn. Okay? Sam'ihim, sin, mim, ayn. Wa'ala, and upon absarihim. Absarihim, their sights. Absar, the root word is basar. Ba, sad, ra. Basar. Now, some I'm going to go into details. Some root words I know that they're coming forward, and it will be a lot more appropriate that when we tackle them somewhere, inshallah. Ghishawatun. Okay, what's the root word? Ghashiya. Okay, Ghashiya, right? And isi say in Urdu we say this word, or in even maghshi, right? Yeah, ghashi, somebody who fainted, right? Somebody who fainted. Ghishawa, the meaning of that is covering. Again, remember I said the word ghain in general begins with covering, right? What was the word we covered before? Ghaib. Ghaib is covering. Okay, ghashia is covering. Ghita is covering. So we said in Arabic, there are things that allude to things. So the illusion over here is something that begins, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, something that begins with ghain generally has the meaning of covering. Generally, okay? Generally has a meaning of covering. Walahum, and for them, adhabun is a punishment, alimun, azimun, great. Azim, okay, azuma, ain, dha, mim. Azim, what's the opposite of azim? Who knows? Something azim and something? No, close enough. Haqir. Azim, haqir. Kabir, saghir. Okay. Now, if you put them on a scale, kabir, saghir, azim, haqir. That's how it goes. So haqir is smaller than saghir. Saghir is smaller than kabir, and kabir is smaller than azim. Azim is greater than kabir, and kabir is greater than saghir, and saghir is greater than. It's too much mental work for you guys at this time of the night. But I just had energy drink, so I'm good. All right. Those were some of the root analysis. Now let's do the tafsir. Yeah, both. Yeah or wow, both. Okay. No, it can be both. Ghashiyah, because these are huruf illa. So they can be changed, and then also they're it could be Basra and Kufa, like from that angle, like some is like Yashia, Ghasho. It doesn't make a difference in the meaning of it. Haqir. Ha, qaf, ya, ra. Haqir. Jamil. So let's do the translation of it, inshallah. We will just start with the flow so we can actually get some of the flow. And there were some points that I missed last time, so I will cover those points, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi wa ba'd. Alif Lam Mim. What is Alif Lam Mim? Huruf al-Muqatta'at. Why did we say these are Huruf al-Muqatta'at? What was the explanation we said? The entire Quran is what? Muttasil. The entire Quran is connected. The entire Quran is connected. And then these huruf al-muqatta'at come and they disconnect, they cut the connectedness of the Quran. So that's why when you're reading this, you don't say alam. You, instead of reciting ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ the way we would recite, you say alif, lam, mim. So now you're breaking down the huruf instead of alam tara kayfa, alam nashrah. We don't do that. The connection of that. So that's one of the reasons they're called huruf al-muqatta'at. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ, ذَلِكَ that. Why did we say ذَلِكَ? There were two reasons. Number one, Lawhul Mahfuz. Number two, it's the highest status of it. Yes, it is with you, the kitab is with us. Like its maqam, its makana, its position is so grand that it's really high. The book that you have is of really high value, hence pointing towards dhalika, and that's a very common way of signifying the significance of something in the Arabic language, to use ism ishara ba'id. Okay. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ, the book, لَا رَيْبَ, there is no doubt, فِيهِ in it, هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. So the first category that, we started with Surah Al-Fatiha, we had صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. So the first 5 verses talked about صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does a prime introduction to these people. So he says, who are these? There's some of the qualities of these muttaqeen. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, they believe in the ghaib, وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, and they establish prayer. وَمِمَّا رَزْقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and from that which we have given them as sustenance, they spend. And we said the word yunfiqun indicates that their habit of spending is not a one-time habit. Yunfiqun, they're in a perpetual, continuous habit of spending, i.e., from their bank accounts or their daily sadaqat. They have daily sadaqat, they have monthly sadaqat, and they have annual sadaqat on a consistent basis, right? And that's a point of implementation or action for us, inshallah. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ, and those that believe بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ. So who are the muttaqeen? They believe in that which has been revealed إِلَيْكَ, to Prophet ﷺ. What was revealed unto him? The Quran that we have. وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِن قَبْلِكَ, and that which has been revealed before you. How many things have been revealed before Prophet ﷺ? How many books have been revealed before Prophet ﷺ? Huh? 4, Suhufi Ibrahima wa Musa, and then وَأَخَذَ الْأَلْوَاحَ, the tablets of Musa. These are all in the Quran, right? In a hadith which is Hasan, and some of the scholars, they have, so this is a hadith that has, some of the scholars have said it is Hasan, and the other scholars, they say that it is, we shouldn't use this hadith. Anyhow, it's a hadith that is mentioned in every hadith book, in every tafsir book. So I'm going to mention it because it's mentioned in Tabari, it's mentioned in Ibn Kathir. They all, despite the fact that they will say, it is even mentioned in Sahih Ibn Hibban. So his Sahih book, he mentions it, right? But again, there's a lot of dispute between the hadith scholars on this hadith. And so the summary of it is, Prophet ﷺ, Abu Dharr al-Ghifari asked Prophet ﷺ, how many books have been revealed before? So he said to Abu Dharr al-Ghifari that there were 104 books that were revealed before. 100 were suhuf, they were just pages, right? A single page, right? In another narration it says kitab, i.e. it was just a page. And 4 were books. And then the distribution was also mentioned. 50 of them were revealed on Sheeth alayhi salam. The 30, the 30, they were revealed on Idris alayhi salam, 30 pages of instructions. Then 10 were revealed on Ibrahim alayhi salam. We have that in the Quran, Suhufi Ibrahim wa Musa. And the 10 that were revealed on Musa alayhi salam before the Torah. There were 10 pages or alwah, tablets that were given to him before the Torah. And then the Zabur of Dawood alayhi salam, and then Torah of Musa alayhi salam, and Injil of Isa alayhi salam. Now, we cannot, a person who denies these 3 will be considered a non-Muslim. You say there's no such thing as Torah, you're one of the 6 pillars of Iman you've dropped, right? To believe in the books that came before. We must believe in them. That's one of the 6 pillars of our iman. So somebody's like, oh, Injil koi cheez nahi hoti. There's no such thing as Injil. That person is not. Again, you and I are not going to call him kafir, but I'm just saying, like, technically, that person has said a statement that would remove him from the fold of Islam just from that statement because one of the pillars has been dropped. Now, the other 100, we don't know what they are. We can't affirm what they are. We are not obligated to affirm them. You get it? So if somebody says there is something that came, for example, the Iraq war that happened, right? Now, I don't know if you read this stuff, but if you read the stuff of why the Iraq war actually happened, it was to do with what? It was to do with nothing to do with oil. It was to do with something called the Sumerian tablets. The Sumerian tablets was the oldest written scripture from humanity that we found, which dates back even before Musa alayhi salam. What happened? The Iraqi people discovered it, and guess where are all the Sumerian tablets right now? They are in the museum of UK and US. They're no longer with the Muslims. Now, interesting things were written in those Sumerian tablets. For example, so there are people who are specialized in learning languages, so they can decode a particular language by looking at symbolisms, and then they can figure out hieroglyphics. There are people who are experts in that, right? People spend time. Again, you will probably get your PhD because you're going to spend like 20 years trying to decode the language, right? But then eventually you'll get there. So in the Sumerian tablets, what they found was mention of, for example, they said, right, that there's a person who was coming and telling us about God, and he used to travel in the skies. Who was that? Idris alayhi salam. Where did he die? In the authentic hadith, he died on the fourth or the second sky, right? Where the Malakul Maut came to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he said, Ya Allah, how am I going to take the ruh of Idris? He's on the earth. He's supposed to be, you told me to go to the second sky to take his ruh. He's on the earth. He said, go where I told you to go. I was like, I gave you the command to take his ruh on the second heaven. Go to the second heaven. You'll find him there. And then what happened? Idris alayhi salam, he would use angels to travel between, so he would go to the first sky and the second sky, and it was well documented about him. And he arrives at the second sky, and the angel of death is like, Subhanallah. Moments ago, you were like in the earth. How did you end up here? Right? And his soul was taken on the second sky. So these were different things that were mentioned. But am I obligated in Sharia? Fourth sky, right? I was right. Fourth sky. Am I obligated in Sharia to believe in the Sumerian tablets? No. Right? Can the Sumerian tablets fortify my iman and what I already believe? Yes, I can. The second thing we must understand about the previous books, there is something called a qaida usuliyya. There is a principle of usulul fiqh, which says, الشرع من قبلنا, Sharia of the people that came before us, shar'una, it is our Sharia, except if it contradicts with our Sharia. Okay? The Sharia of the people that came before, if something is proven legislatively through the Quran or through the Hadith, not through the Bible, right? Through the Quran and Hadith, that this was the way of the people of the past, it becomes the Sharia for us too. As long as it doesn't negate, i.e., there is no contradiction with our existing Sharia. So give me an example of that, right? Yeah.
So an example of that is the punishment of somebody who deliberately goes out of the fold of Islam and does that.
Okay. So what's the example? How is the example of that with the previous?
That punishment, the whatever.
Yeah.
For such a person is in Sharia of Musa.
Yeah. So that is in his Sharia too, and in our Sharia too, right? And it is in our Sharia too, by the way. It is our Sharia. I want an example of a contradiction. So contradiction is you were allowed to do sajda of ta'zeem in the previous Sharias. Yusuf alayhi salam and all of that, you were allowed to do that. But our Sharia has negated that you should not do sajda. We're not allowed to do sajda to anyone, right? So again, that's a very important principle for us too. Yes, yes, yeah. Hajj has been legislated since the time of Adam alayhi salam. Yes, Hajj has been marrying, right? Eating their food. Yes. So, inna alladhina kafaru. Now we begin the next part, right? Ulaika ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, min qablika wa bil akhirati hum yuqinun, and their quality of the muttaqin are they believe in the akhirah. Ulaika, these are the people, ala hudam min rabbihim, they are on guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa ulaika humul muflihun, and these are the truly successful ones. Now, today's ayat. Inna alladhina kafaru. And as for those, indeed, for those people who did kufr, i.e., they recognized the haqq and they said, I'm not going to believe in it. The example of that is who? Abu Jahl. What was the actual name of Abu Jahl before the Muslims called him Abu Jahl? No, what? Huh? No. No. There were two names for him. Abu al-Aql. Abu al-Aql and Abu al-Hakam. Abu al-Hakam, the wise person or the intellectual one. Okay? When he came and they all sat with the Quraysh and they asked him, they said, Ya Abu al-Aql, Ya Abu al-Hakam, whichever one you want to use. Like the message of Muhammad, doesn't it resonate with your aql? He said, Ama wallah, inni a'rifu annahu nabi. I know that he is a nabi. And I know that his message is true. Ajib. So his aql understood the message, affirmed the message. He said, but, you know, my qabila and his qabila, we were like always battling with one another. So his qabila, they got to give water to the Hujjaj. So we took care of the ghilaf of the Kaaba. His qabila did this, we did this. He did this, we did this. Ayakunu nabiyyun minhu. And now they have a nabi. How am I going to top this? Our qabila can't top that. So that's why I'm going to say he's not a nabi. Because if I affirm, my aql says he is a nabi. But if I affirm this, then I will not be able to top this. Because nubuwwah comes from Allah. This is Abu Jahl. He is saying this. He understood everything. Right? And what happened? They would all sit together and they would promise one another, promise me, you promise me. We all promise, all the leaders, you promise, we're not going to listen to his Quran. Promise, promise, promise. Then at 3 o'clock at night, when Rasulullah would be reciting, right, they will sneak up outside the wall of the Rasulullah to sit and listen to what he's saying and reciting. And they would recite and they would see the others like, Ama qulna, did we not promise that we're not going to come? So tum bhi aa gaye, you also here. Subhanallah. All of you showed up. There's like, okay, let's all promise we're not going to do this again. And this happened multiple times. So eventually they all sat together and they created a pact. What are we going to do? He said, we are going to nuharibu. Right? Then you look at even one of Rasulullah's best friend, who was from Yemen, right? He came and they told him that, listen, you are the best healer that we know. This person, something is wrong with his intellect. Go and hopefully you can fix him. So this person goes and meets Prophet ﷺ, listens to his message, and all Prophet ﷺ says what? Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Yes. The doctor, yes. Let me finish the hadith. I thought there was something wrong with the internet or something. Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. All he said this, the person is like, يا محمد أعد علي كلماتك هذا. Can you repeat this again? So Rasulullah is like, إن الحمد لله نحمده أعد علي كلماتك هذا. Repeat this again. He heard it again. We hear this every day in khutbah. None of our hearts move. He just heard this. He said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. He didn't even hear the Quran. He just heard the eloquence of Rasulullah in this Arabic statement. And then he was like, he went back and he told them, Ya ma'shar al-Quraysh, he has nothing wrong with him. All of you are majnoons. You have issues. So a kafir is a person who recognizes the haqq. This was in the context of Rasulullah. But can we apply this in the context of today? Yes. Right? It doesn't have to be somebody who says there is no Islam. It can be somebody who is calcified on one way of living as a Muslim. And when he recognizes that, bhai, whatever I've been doing, there is something better that I can do. There's a better way of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do we say? No, man, I've been doing it like this. I don't want to change. Okay, I want to stick to what I know. I don't want to change. It's too uncomfortable for me. I have been praying for 40 years like this. I don't want to add this extra dua in my salah. Right? We become calcified. We stop using our aql. We stop using this ability of ours to be able to grow. Right? So, inna alladhina kafaru. So the issue was theirs. They chose to not use their intellect. They chose to not use their aql. Sawa'un alayhim, such individuals, whether you warn them, it is equal upon them. You give them a warning, don't do this, or you don't give them a warning, nothing is going to change. Why? Because warning is heeded by intellect. When I warn you something, if you are using your aql, you'll say, oh yeah, you're right. No, you're saying something. I shouldn't drive very fast on a motorbike. Yeah, there's something there. Right? But when you're a teenager and you have a motorbike and you're like, come on, I'm invincible. My aql does not submit to that information. Similarly, over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like, Ya Rasulullah, those who have chosen this path in your life, and the same thing in our lives, if they have intellectually chosen to be like that, sawa'un alayhim, it is equal on them, whether you warn them or you don't warn them. La yu'minun, they're not going to believe. It's not that Allah has made them disbelievers. Right? So a lot of questions that come for people, what do they say? They say, oh, look. Because Allah has said, Sawa'un alayhim andartahum am lam tunzirhum la yu'minun. Allah has said they're not going to believe. Hence, because of the statement, they're not going to believe. Right? So the sawal is, the question that comes up usually, is it because they're not going to believe? Is it because Allah said so? Or they're not going to believe, and Allah said this because of His ilm as-sabiq, because of His pre-eternal knowledge that He had. Allah was able to tell this because of His knowledge. He knows they're not going to believe. So He's just letting Prophet ﷺ at rest. That those that have seen the truth and they have walked away from you, O Prophet of Allah, don't worry about them. Don't worry about them. They're not going to come back. Similar to Nuh alayhi salam, right? When Nuh alayhi salam was told that after 950 years, قَدْ آمَنَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ, whoever has believed in you before Nuh alayhi salam, nobody is going to believe after this. After 950 years, he said, go build the ship. Whoever has believed in you has believed, there you will not get new believers. It's not that Allah stopped the door of guidance. Allah's eternal knowledge of ghaib tells, and He informed His Nabi, ab koi nahi iman layega. Nobody's going to believe in you, so just build the ship and take with you man amana ma'ak. Whoever has believed in you, take with them on the ship. Same concept here. Now, andartahum, the word andartahum over here is something of very importance for us. So over here, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is using the utmost level of rahmah, care, gentleness, softness in waking them up. The word indar we said is when I warn you, but warning is gentleness in it. It's sometimes when a parent warns a child of a particular behavior. The child may not see at that very moment, right? They may not be able to understand at that very moment that my father or my mother, what they're telling me is for my khair, it's for my good. They may not be able to see that at that time. But in that warning of the father or the mother, there is a lot of love and care attached. It may not be visible to the child at that time. Why are you doing this? This doesn't make sense to me. It's okay. And likewise are the Anbiya alayhim salam. They spread with the highest level of love and care their message, but they don't shy away from warning people. Keep that in mind. There is warning. Today, what is happening, sadly, is we have something called fluff da'wah. All the speakers, everybody, nobody wants to quote that hadith that is going to hurt somebody's feeling. Nobody wants to quote that hadith, right? Nobody wants to say a hadith like that, right? We said that in our last class or the class before, last class in Tafsir Surah Kahf. We talked about it, right? We said, right, that when Allah's hukum comes, how does my heart react? What is the reaction of my heart? Is it going to submit to that which I hold dearly, but now the hadith or this ayah or the hukum or some sheikh or some scholar has told me this is not the right belief to hold? It doesn't matter how sacred you hold that belief, right? You have to let go of it because there is an authenticated belief that contradicts with that. And what is happening today with the Muslim world is, and this is part of like the cause of um, liberalism, right? That's what it's caused. Liberalism has caused this right now, which is that each person, their identity, what they have done is they've created a compartmentalized identities for themselves. What does that mean? That means when it comes to my food and the way I eat, I am either a carnivore, or I'm this, or I'm a vegan, or I'm a this. Like you've created an identity for that. Then we have created a sub identity of ours when it comes to our clothing preferences and what type of clothes and sustainability and green and all of that. So I've created that as part of my identity. Then I have created the identity, my political identity. I'm a Muslim and I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Muslim, I'm a Republican. I'm a Muslim and I vote Green Party. Then I've created a sub identity of value systems, right? I'm a conservative or I'm this. Then I've created a sub identity of my spirituality, right? I'm a spiritual person. I'm a devout Muslim. I am a practicing Muslim. I am, spiritual but not practicing Muslim. We've created these sub identities of ours. See what's happening? And all of these identities, when I say something, right? And as a Muslim, we should, all of these things were part of me as a whole, as a Muslim. My political identity, my food, all of these things, Islam tells you what to do in them. We can't just say my Islam is just limited to my devotional and my worship and all of that. Everything else I get to choose from the Western what I like. Islam tells you what you cannot and how and what can you and not eat, right? And the example of this is like when we go to the camps, right? We get these parents who are super paranoid that, oh, we are a vegetarian Muslim household. We don't feed our kids. Our kids cannot be even on a table. It was just crazy. And parents calling us counselors and checking, is my son sitting on a table with meat? Is he not sitting on table with meat? Why? Because I have now removed, I've just kept my Islam in compartment of devotion, Everything else, free for all. I can bring all the values of the Western world and I just live like an American Muslim. And it becomes easier for me because then I can just turn on my Muslim identity in the masjid, turn it off, and I can become a more moderate, liberal Muslim, more progressive in this gala. And then I could turn that off and I could do all of this. And this is what's happening right now. Right? And for a believer, so because we're not using. So over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ, i.e. this warning, it requires that our du'at, people who are calling to Islam, they have to say things that hurt. They can't sugarcoat. They cannot. Right? And a prime example of that is when I was invited to a university and somebody's like, how do I enter Jannah? Right? And I gave them the hadith. Like the sister was very upset. I said, I'm like, what do you want me to do? I can't sugarcoat this hadith for you. Right? There are 4 things a woman does. She can enter Jannah from any door that she wishes. Don't you want to enter Jannah? Right? But no. This one item in that I can't agree to. Nay. I will enter Jannah with the other 3, but this one I can't submit to. Why? Oh, because my identity in marriage, I am this type of I'm no longer the Muslim. I have also compartmentalized what type of marriage I have. Traditional marriage, a 50-50 marriage, this marriage, we've also compartmentalized that. So, أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ, a Nabi comes and he doesn't care how, that's the reason why they were fighting them. That's the reason why the Quraysh were fighting, because he was talking about Aqidah issues that were at the root cause, core of that society. And they were like, no, we cannot accept this. But he would say that with love and care. That's the other part. We have people who are speaking the truth. We are lots of speakers that are saying the truth, that have to say what has to be said, right? But then they're saying it in a manner that turns off everybody. And that's the entire concept of this word indar. That we warn them, we say what has to be said, we don't sugarcoat it, but we say it with the utmost respect. We say it, instead of saying you're going to Jahannam, this action of yours will enter you into Jahannam, right? We can flip that statement by just saying, with a warning, saying, I really don't want you to be standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this heavy burden on that day. Think about it. Right? It's the same message. It's a warning, but it's with gentleness. Right? And it's no sugarcoating here. You will have to stand in front of Allah and answer for this. Right? But instead of saying you're straight to Jahannam, then that's problematic. أَمْ لَمْ تُنْذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Give them a warning, you don't give them warning. They, in the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're not going to believe. خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ. This is important for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not do anything preemptively. This is something we have to understand in our aqidah. Allah is not in a need of sealing your heart. You get it? Allah doesn't just randomly one day says, okay, you know what, that heart sealed, that heart unsealed. It doesn't work like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, la hajata lahu. He has no need to seal your heart. So what sealed your heart? You did. Your actions did. Your own actions did. Multiple opportunities to choose, you chose not to choose. Then, when you denied multiple times, Allah says, khalas, you chose the denial, your heart is now sealed. Your own actions led you to. So, khatam Allah, i.e., Allah, after lots of choices, finally said, fine, if you want to seal and you want to do all the actions of sealing your heart, khatam Allahu ala qulubihim, so your heart will be sealed. So Allah sealed their hearts, wa ala sam'ihim, and upon their hearings, wa ala absarihim, and on their eyesights. Question for you. Qulub is jama'. Sam' is singular. Absar is plural. Why? Singular, plural, so plural, singular, plural. Why not? We have 2 ears. We have 2 eyes, absar. Right? We have 2 ears. But whenever Quran uses the word sama', it's always singular. Why? Mm. Okay, so if we all sit here right now, right, and a car accident happens outside, okay, and we hear the bang. What do we hear? The bang. Everybody hears the exact same sound. The one closer will hear a louder sound. The one further will hear a lighter sound. But the sound of the accident is going to be one. I.e., everybody collective will say we heard a car accident. If a fire, remember that fire truck that went last time? If a fire truck goes, we all heard the fire truck. Right now, those that were probably sitting at the back, they were able to see the fire truck. Those that were focused on something else, they saw some light pass by. They don't know if it was blue or red, right? So our sight of, and those that are closer to the accident will be able to see a completely different version of the accident, as opposed to somebody that is really far away and they saw there is an accident, but their version of what took place is every person's sight of that accident, depending on the angle and the proximity, is going to be different. So one particular event, the sound of it is going to be one. But the description of how you relate that event in through your eyes, every person based on inputs is going to be different. Okay, so that's why one haditha, as-sam'u wahid, one event, one accident, the sound is going to be one. We all heard a boom. Okay, some people who, if the boom happened behind me, I heard the boom and I saw the accident after the boom. You guys were witnessing through the wall somehow miraculously. You have X-ray vision or X-Men vision, and you guys can see behind, and you saw the entire accident. Your version of the event is going to be very different than my version of the events. Okay, and that's why in the Quran, sam' is always one. Sorry, sam', hearing. Yes. So everybody hears one, but we see things different. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. So when Sahabas, that's a really good example. Every Sahabi, why do we have 400 hadiths describing Prophet ﷺ? Those who were kids, they went up really close to Prophet ﷺ. Actually, as a matter of fact, most of the narrators who described the physical features of Prophet ﷺ, they're all kids. They were all under 12 because they did not have the fear of Rasulullah. So they would just go up to him and they would be really close up to him. Right? But the older Sahabas, that's why you don't see Abu Bakr describing Rasulullah. Umar radiallahu anh never described Rasulullah. Uthman radiallahu anh never described Rasulullah. Who did? Ali radiallahu anh. Ali was very young. He hung out with Rasulullah as a kid. So he knew every little detail. So they did not have that haiba of Rasulullah because he was very loving to the children. Children could come up to him. Right? So they were able to look into the face of Rasulullah because they didn't, oh yeah, it's Rasulullah. He's just so cool. For them, he was just like, oh, he's asking them, oh, what happened to your pet? What happened to your in personal lives? So they were able to describe features, but every Sahabi described differently. Somebody's like, I was on the right of Rasulullah and I was able to see the face and I was able to see the moon at the same site. And it was very difficult for me to agree which one was more luminance, i.e., which one had more nur. Was it the 14th, the full moon, or the face of Rasulullah? Right? Others, they said Rasulullah's face was like a shining sword. Right? Everybody described, because they looked at it in a different way. Right? But then everybody describes the sound, the hearing of Rasulullah. There are no narrations about that because everybody heard it the same way. There was no discrepancies in that. Cool. So, Khatam Allahu ala qulubihim. Allah has placed a seal upon their hearts. Wa ala qulubihim. The word qulub is important for us as a concept, and then we'll talk about it in detail. Qalb is the physical heart and the spiritual heart. Likewise is the aql, right? The physical brain of ours and the aql, the spiritual aql that exists. You know the whole thing when Einstein died, they split his brain open, they tried to download his brain and stuff like that. This whole thing, right? Like, you heard about that, right? Like when they died, and like somebody's like, okay, let's take his brain and download it somewhere. So we don't want to lose his brain. He's got a very, there was nothing in that brain. Why? Because it's just a physical matter. As a matter of fact, a whale has a much bigger brain than Einstein, if it's a size that matters, right? It's the aql, i.e., the spirit and how it connected. So there are two things. لهم قلوب لا يفقهون. Your qalb has the ability to intellectually reason, and it has the ability to actually, now we know medically, store memory. So your heart has certain neurons, it has certain cells that actually store. So your event is stored in your heart and it's actually stored in your brain too. Like the memory of that, physical. Now, so this qalb that Rasulullah and the Quran, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Quran talks about, this qalb is a spiritual heart. It's an entirely spiritual concept. Okay, just that is enough for us to understand for now. As there's few verses coming further down that will talk about a little bit. Going to talk about that. About their hearts and how their hearts that open up and stuff. Then we'll go into the detailed discussion of heart that when that comes. Khatam Allahu ala qulubihim. Allah has sealed, set a seal on their hearts. Wa ala sam'ihim, and on their hearing. Wa ala absarihim, and on their sights. Okay, it doesn't say wa ala uyunihim. Okay, it does not say on their eyes. I.e., they're able to see, but they're not able to have foresight. They're able to see physically, they're not blind, but they don't have foresight. They're not able to see through things. They're not able to see the actual, they call it the quiddity of things, the actual essence of thing. Basirat, i.e., being able to see asliyat mein, the reality, what is happening, they're not able to see that. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And for them, Allah has prepared a great punishment. Why a great punishment? Why such a great punishment for such a simple denial? Because Allah had given them aql. And what differentiates us from all other haywan is our ability to reason, our aql. And that is why if that aql is lifted in a human being, then he is not held liable. There is no responsibility on him on the Day of Judgment. Right? Rufi al-qalamu an thalath, the pen has been lifted on 3, right? And one of them is a person who's majnoon, hatta ya'qil, until he gets his intellect back, or if he doesn't, then he doesn't. Okay? Right? That's why in this entire process, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that they had aql, they chose to deny, and because of their own choices, all of these consequences happen to them in this dunya. May Allah protect us. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And because of that, there's going to be a great punishment for them. May Allah protect us from all of this. We'll stop over here, inshallah. Again, for those of you that are new, I don't have these. We do have these we generally have them in the car, but we actually would put some furniture in the car, so we remove them. I will bring those 2 juz. Probably I'll give you for you to give to uncle, inshallah, and yours I can give it to Hanifa, or when I'll meet them, inshallah, and then we can do that. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وبارك اللهم على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها مولاها يا رب العالمين. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم وفقنا لما تحب وترضى، والحقنا البطانة الصالحة الذي تدلنا على الخير يا رب العالمين. وصلى اللهم تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.